recall the first time I completely grasped what it meant to confront myself. Not in a mirror, not in reflection, but in the moment of utter truth when all else fades away. It occurred during a sparring match in Hong Kong. My opponent was skilled and disciplined, as you'd expect from a master of his art. But when we circled each other, something unusual happened. I wasn't seeing him any longer. I was witnessing myself, my anxieties, limits, and ego, and in that moment of clarity, I recognized something that would change everything. The most deadly opponent you will ever face does not stand across from you. It's the one within you. This fact is not only about fighting, it is about life. The daily conflicts, the seemingly insurmountable difficulties, and the issues that wake you up in the middle of the night all come from the same place. That inner voice telling you that you are insufficient, unprepared, and unworthy. That insidious suggestion that sows seeds of doubt exactly when you need confidence. I call this your inner adversary, because overcoming it is the most important war you will ever face. Are you prepared to fight this opponent? Are you ready to gaze inward with complete honesty? Because what I am about to share with you is more than simply philosophy. It's a way to emancipation. But be warned, once you realize this reality, you'll never be able to unsee it. Looking straight into the sun, for example, will permanently alter your perception of yourself and your surroundings. When I initially started teaching in America, I encountered opposition from traditional martial arts schools. They chastised my tactics, calling them unorthodox and even disrespectful of traditional traditions. But these external criticisms were not my real challenge. Late one night, after everyone had left, I found myself alone in my cocoon, enveloped in solitude. I was doing a technique I'd done thousands of times before, a simple sidekick. Something felt odd while I moved, not in my body, but deeper. I came to a complete stop and stood perfectly still. In that moment of complete silence, I heard it clearly for the first time, the voice of doubt. Who are you to question centuries of tradition? What makes you believe your way is superior? You will never be accepted. This voice was not coming from my detractors. It was emanating from within. I realized I had been waging the wrong battle all along. The true battle was not against external doubters, but against my own self-doubt, fear of rejection, and confusion about my direction. This revelation hit me like a physical blow. I'd spent years training my body, polishing my methods, and increasing my speed, but I'd overlooked the most important battlefield of all, my head. Do you feel the same way I do? The continual internal strife. When you're going to take a risk in business, that voice says, play it safe. When you wish to reveal your actual feelings to someone you care about, it warns, you'll be rejected. When you fantasize of starting anything fresh, you are reminded of all your previous failures. This isn't just sporadic uncertainty. It's a dangerous foe who knows your every flaw because it's you. Let me describe the three most harmful expressions of this inner opponent. I did not learn about things from old writings or my lecturers. I discovered them in moments of stark self-honesty, in the gap between heartbeats, and in the silence following a flurry of activity. The first is a perfectionist. This opponent looks to be on your side, encouraging you to strive for excellence. However, its true essence is paralysis. I recall spending weeks practicing a single movement in my form, certain that absolute technical perfection was the goal. However, this desire of perfection was suffocating rather than enhancing my creativity. The perfectionist does not want you to succeed, rather wants you to be so afraid of failure that you never start. How many dreams have died during the planning stage because they could not be flawlessly executed? How many words are unheard because they cannot be correctly phrased? The perfectionist keeps you stuck in mediocrity by making excellence appear impossible. The second manifestation is an imposter. This opponent murmurs that you don't belong, that your accomplishments are coincidental, and that it's only a matter of time before everyone realizes you're a fraud. When I initially arrived in Hollywood, I could feel it all the time. You are simply a Chinese actor in an American environment. They will never accept you as anything other than a stereotype. The imposter lives on comparison. It continuously compares you to others and finds you lacking. It rejects your successes as luck and amplifies your setbacks as unavoidable. This opponent is especially deadly since it attacks just when you're about to make a breakthrough, dimming your light exactly when you need it the most. The third and most subtle manifestation is the guardian. This adversary disguises itself as protection, keeping you in your comfort zone while calling it safety. The voice says, "You've come far enough. Why jeopardize what you've built?" When I began developing Jeet Kune Do, which went beyond traditional Wing Chun, the guardian appeared and said, "You've already mastered one art. Why start at the beginning? Why make yourself vulnerable again?" The guardian prioritizes comfort over growth and the familiar over the possible. It constructs walls and calls them homes. These three, the perfectionist, the imposter, and the guardian, are not independent entities. They're the same opponent, parts of your own mind working against you. And here's the key insight: you can't defeat them with force. Fighting back only strengthens them. Instead, you must improve your relationship with them via understanding and awareness. I recall an important turning point in my training. I was working with a wooden dummy, completing combinations with increasing intensity, faster, tougher, and more precise, pushing myself to the limit of my ability. I paused abruptly, not from tiredness, but from a flash of tremendous insight. I was no longer training to better my technique. Instead, I was training to prove something to myself, my critics, and my father's memory. My practice had become another battleground for my internal strife. In that moment, I realized that my relationship with martial arts had to alter. Each movement was about honest self-expression, not perfection or demonstrating one's worth. The goal of training was not to defeat others or even myself, but to unveil myself, to remove all that was false until only truth remained. This principle applies far beyond martial arts. Think about your own life. How much of what you do is genuine self-expression, and how much is a response to inner doubts and fears? Do you work extra hours because you enjoy what you do or because you want to silence the imposter? When you avoid taking chances, is it wisdom or your guardian speaking? When you leave initiatives halfway through, is it a practical evaluation or the perfectionist demanding the impossible? The true struggle isn't fought in the world of rivalry and strife. It's in the quiet moments when you're alone with yourself, with no one to impress, defeat, or blame. That is when these inner opponents are at their most powerful. And that's exactly when you need to remember what I'm about to teach you. When I founded Jeet Kune Do, people assumed I was merely establishing another combat technique. But I didn't want to contribute to the uncertainty about tactics and systems. I was interested in cutting away everything unnecessary until only the truth remained. Using no way as way, having no limitation as limitation. This philosophy is even more relevant to your inner fights. Most people handle internal difficulties using rigid approaches such as positive affirmations, strict routines, and forced images. They attempt to replace bad thoughts with positive ones, to combat darkness with artificial light. However, this method misrepresents the nature of the mind. You cannot defeat thought with thought, just as you cannot calm water by hitting it. True transformation is achieved via inclusion rather than opposition. Remember my most famous advice? Be water, my friend. Water doesn't battle with obstacles. It flows around them. It does not resist the container, rather, it adapts to it. When confronted with inner opponents, inflexible resistance merely adds to the tension. Instead, go the way of water, fluid, adaptable, yielding, and unstoppable. When a perfectionist expects flawlessness, don't respond with forced mediocrity. Flow around it by embracing greatness without regard for outcome. When the imposter questions your identity, do not respond with desperate self-promotion. Flow beneath it, concentrating on contribution rather than validation. When the guardian encourages caution, don't revolt recklessly. Flow through it by gradually and deliberately widening your comfort zone. This takes us to one of my most misunderstood techniques, the one-inch punch. People marvel at the outward display of power, but they overlook the underlying idea. The strength comes from the total integration of mind, body, and intention, not from each inch of physical action. When internal conflict is resolved, there is no gap between thought and action, intention and manifestation, and actual power arises. Your life adheres to the same principle. When you bridge the gap between who you are and who you present to the world, when you overcome the conflict between who you are and who you believe you should be, and when your actions are fully aligned with your beliefs, you have access to your true power. Authenticity is the ultimate technique. I once removed all of the mirrors from my training room, not out of vanity or distraction, but because I realized I'd been fighting my own reflection, an image, an illusion of who I felt I should be. The true battle is not with what you see in the mirror. The true struggle is with the assumptions that cause you to perceive an opponent at all. Overcoming oneself does not provide you with actual power or authentic expression. It lies in the awareness that there was never anything to overcome. The opponent you've been fighting is really a mirror of your own limited ideas. When you truly realize this, everything changes. You become like water, formless, shapeless, and capable of adapting to any container that life places you in without losing your essence. Now, let me share with you the techniques that helped me turn from an angry and frustrated young man into someone who could genuinely express himself. These are not simply tactics, but liberating tools. However, keep in mind that a tool is only as effective as the truth it conveys. First, practice honest self-reflection. Every morning, before touching a training dummy or throwing a single punch, I'd stand alone and ask myself, who am I today? Not who you were yesterday or who you will be tomorrow, but who are you right now? Most people would never dare to ask this question. They are too terrified of the response. But power starts with honesty. Begin each day with 5 minutes of total stillness. Not meditation, not affirmation, just stillness. Listen to what comes from within. Do not judge, resist, or identify with it. Simply observe, like watching clouds pass across the sky. This basic practice starts the process of distancing yourself from your inner adversaries. You are not your thoughts, but the consciousness that sees them. Second, practice non-doing. We've been taught that growth comes from constant action, from doing more, trying harder, and pushing yourself further. However, actual progress frequently occurs from the gaps between efforts, from letting rather than driving. Incorporate deliberate intervals of non-doing into your daily routine. Not rest or recreation, but conscious non-action. Sit without purpose. Move without a goal. Create without any expectations. This approach undermines the perfectionist's demand for perpetual output and the imposter's need for constant validation. Third, practice with progressive discomfort. Every day, set one modest boundary, one tiny border of your comfort zone, and go beyond it, not in a huge leap, but in a deliberate stride. If speaking in public scares you, begin with speaking up in a small group. If you are intimidated by physical challenges, start with one more repeat than you feel comfortable with. Remember that water does not break through the dam all at once, it seeks the smallest opening and gradually expands it. I did not become Bruce Lee overnight. I became Bruce Lee by making thousands of small decisions to be authentic rather than acceptable, honest rather than impressive, and to forge my own route rather than follow the path laid out for me by others. Each modest choice generated momentum, which eventually became unstoppable. Fourth, practice with an empty cup. Every morning, remind yourself that yesterday's knowledge is yesterday's limit. Empty your cup completely. Pour out your beliefs about what you can and cannot do, who you are and are not. Begin each day as if you know nothing, as if anything is possible, as if you are discovering yourself for the first time. The greatest barrier to learning is not ignorance, but the illusion of knowledge. The biggest impediment to advancement is not constraint, but the sense of completion. Finally, develop death awareness, not in a morbid way, but as the ultimate perspective switcher. Each evening, ask yourself, if today were my last, would I be happy with how I spent it? Not with my accomplishments, but with how I expressed myself. Did I live this day as my true self or as a reaction to my fears? This method avoids the guardian's comfort-seeking and the perfectionist's constant procrastination. It forces you to confront your own priorities. Here's the key point. These activities aren't about becoming someone new. They're about removing everything that isn't authentically you. We are not adding material to the sculpture, but rather removing anything that obscures the masterpiece within. The ultimate practice isn't about adding new techniques to your repertoire. It's about removing the barriers to your natural expression. Water flows without trying, it simply follows its natural course. Your actual power will come not from what you add to yourself, but from what you are willing to let go. Remember that these activities are not the finish, but rather the beginning. They are not solutions, but rather doors. Each one is an opportunity to go deeper into your own reality, to remove another layer of self-imposed limitations. It's now or never. Everything I've taught you, recognizing your inner opponents, transformation principles, and everyday practices, leads to this final battle. But I must warn you, what I am going to propose will put you to the test in ways that no physical challenge ever could. You see, your entire life, you've been fighting the wrong battle. You've been striving for perfection, seeking an idealistic image of oneself that does not exist. This image of perfection is not your ally, it is your jail. I spent years stuck by it, constantly pushing, striving, and never feeling good enough. But here's the reality that altered everything for me. The ideal self is the greatest illusion. It's like chasing your own shadow. The harder you try, the further it runs. The true breakthrough comes not from becoming perfect, but from overcoming the demand for perfection. Consider the self-defeating cycle you've been following. Wake up, condemn yourself, strive harder, fall short, repeat. It's like a fighter who has memorized a losing combination and continues to deliver the same punches, expecting a different outcome. To break the rhythm, you must first notice it, then interrupt it, and finally transcend it completely. This is why I've issued you a day challenge, the most critical struggle of your life. But this is not a war against oneself. Rather, it is a fight for yourself. Day 1, accept your reflection without judgment. Just observe, as if you were watching an opponent and not planning your attack. Notice the thoughts and criticisms that surface, but do not engage with them. Just a witness. This simple act of observation begins to create distance between you and your inner demons. Day 2, recognize when you are being critical of yourself and respond with understanding rather than resistance. When you detect a perfectionist demanding flawlessness, don't resist it. Instead, accept it. I see you, perfectionist. I understand you're attempting to keep me from failing, but now I chose growth over safety. This is not optimistic thinking, it is an honest relationship. Day 3, carry out one activity that your perfect self would claim you're not prepared for. Submit that manuscript, have that unpleasant talk, and register for that class. Not recklessly, but mindfully, fully aware of your fears, but not controlled by them. This direct action disturbs the rhythm of ongoing preparation. Day 4, break one tendency, one habit that promotes your idealized image above your actual expression. Perhaps it is working late to appear dedicated while your body requires rest. Perhaps it's saying yes when you actually mean no in order to appear flexible. Perhaps you're hiding your genuine thoughts in order to look acceptable. Identify one trend and make a conscious decision to choose something different. Day 5, in every conversation, prioritize genuine expression over flawless performance. This does not imply carelessness or thoughtlessness, rather, it implies authenticity. Let go of the script. Respond from present rather than preparation. When asked how you are doing, respond truthfully rather than mechanically. When expressing your perspective, share your true thoughts rather than what you believe would be well appreciated. Day 6, intentionally do something imperfectly and embrace the discomfort like an old friend. Cook a meal without measuring the ingredients. Make art without removing faults. Write without editing while you go. Submit work that is good enough instead of flawless. This exercise directly tackles the perfectionist's control over your expression. Day 7, stand in front of your mirror again, not to evaluate, but to honor the warrior who had the bravery to be authentic. Recognize the tiny adjustments in your relationship with yourself. This is not about dramatic change. It is about beginning a new habit and establishing a new relationship with your inner world. Remember that each day isn't about attaining a new level of accomplishment. It's about removing another layer of pretense. To uncover who you truly are, you must transcend the idea of who you think you should be, just like a martial artist does to find their own path. This challenge is about growing freer, not stronger. It is not about adding more, but about letting go. It is not about being perfect, rather. It is about being real. Will you stumble? Absolutely. Will you experience resistance? Without a question. But that isn't failure, it's feedback. Each challenging situation is an encouragement to dig deeper, not a hint to retreat. The true win in this challenge comes not on day 7, but in the moments in between, the split second when you choose truth over appearance, honesty over approbation, and genuine expression over perfect performance. Return to the mirror that revealed your greatest opponent at the start of our adventure. Look closely. What are you seeing? Not the adversary you dreaded, but the ally you didn't recognize. Not the enemy to be vanquished, but the self waiting to be freed. I spent my entire life learning the art of combat, only to discover that the ultimate struggle is not fought with fists or feet. It is waged in the quiet moments when you prefer truth over comfort, progress over safety, and honesty over acceptance. Here's the secret I promise to impart with you. Self-mastery isn't about conquering yourself, but about being yourself. The true you, not the one the world expects, nor the one your worries have produced, but the one who exists in those rare moments when you stop pretending. Like water, you have always had the ability to adapt, flow, and penetrate any impediment. Your genuine strength, like water, comes from flowing with what could be, rather than battling what is. Let go of who you think you should be and become like water, my buddy. Remember this, the biggest fight isn't one you fight against your constraints. It's one you win just by having the courage to be yourself. Your opponents will fade, your doubts will subside, but your truth, the naked, unfiltered, strong truth of who you truly are, will endure. Now go, the mirror awaits. But this time, don't look for someone to vanquish. Prepare for the warrior within to emerge, because the greatest achievement is not becoming flawless, but becoming real. Become water, my friend. Be yourself. And as you leave this moment, bring these realities with you. Remember one final lesson. The master does not become a master by collecting techniques. The master becomes a master by removing all that is unneeded until just the essence remains. Your life is the same way. True mastery is not found by accumulating more accomplishments, goods, and affirmation. It's found by removing anything that isn't genuine until only your true self remains. I started this adventure by telling you about the moment in the womb when I met my genuine opponent for the first time. Now I'd want to ask you, what will your moment be? When will you face yourself with utter honesty? When will you stop battling your nature and start embracing it? That moment, that decision, marks the genuine beginning of your freedom. Remember that the most deadly opponent isn't the one right in front of you. It is not your competition, critic, or circumstance. The most deadly opponent is the one within you who knows all of your flaws, anxieties, and doubts. But here's the lovely irony. When you stop battling this enemy and start understanding it, it transforms from your worst adversary to your best teacher. I'll leave you with this final truth. You are not broken. You do not need to be fixed. You don't need to improve. You only need to remove the layers of fear, doubt, and pretense that obscure your true nature. Your inner nature lies beneath all of that indoctrination, expectations, and preconceptions about who you should be. Like water, powerful not because it pushes, but because it flows. Unstoppable because it adapts rather than confronts. Pure is defined as being faithful to one's essence rather than being perfect.